Hey guys, my name is Ruben Phoenix and this is drawing the human figure from your mind advanced concepts. So here let's spend a little bit time and understand the fundamental concepts of proportions, right? So from the anatomical books that are out there, right? So all these fantastic anatomical books, there's these chapters on proportions as to how you're supposed to uh, measure the figure down using that head formula, right? So when you go through that experience, you're going to end up finding very simple shortcuts, and you would do that through that research. So here I'm just going to show you um, some basic concepts that really make life much more easier than to have to sit there and measure each head down, which you really don't have to, because the mechanism for proportions is actually pretty basic. So for instance, we can say that, okay, let's just say that, like so let's just do a figure here. I want to make sure this fits on paper and I can go up. Okay, so this is our 8-head formula over here, right, for the figure. Well, this is like a flow line. I'm just going to do a quick figure here. Real quick, and this is going to be our 8-head figure over here, right? So here we know that, okay, well, when we divide this in half, right, we get into that same understanding that we've been coming off from about 8-head proportions as to how to put these ideas down onto paper. Here we can just pretty much figure out the whole thing from here, 1/3 down, right, and we can figure out the whole thing from the bottom over here, meaning that the knee here is going to be on top, right? So here in this thumbnail sketch over here, we can just put that whole figure down pretty quickly. Let me put this down real quick here. First I have to complete this before I can tell you. Okay, so here I've got my line for the nipple. Okay, on when I divided this in half, I knew that in the 8-head formula, this is the line for the nipple. So my chest is going to go down here, and this is going to be my shoulder area over here. And I can put these ideas down pretty fast over here, right? Okay, so it's just a very we'll clean this up just like before in a little bit. Just want to get these concepts down pretty fast here. Okay, so here's that the 8-head figure, right? So what should happen if we want to, let's say, draw this figure in 9 heads, right? So this is like our key figure here. Well, the thing is that we can make a line over here, right? Let's say let's do a 9-head figure that's going to be over here standing next to this guy here, right? So the thing is, like, how do you put 9 heads into, but this is your key figure, so you can actually just put 9 heads here and figure this out, right? But the shortcut is that, so this is interesting as to how this actually works. This is something you're going to discover yourself, right? So if you take this 9-head figure here, right, and you use that same system of putting the figure down, so meaning that if we now divide this in half, right, this line here, we've pretty much figured out the whole 9-head figure. And let me show you how this is working, right? So here I'm going to have to put this whole thing down first. Right, so automatically he's going to become a little wider here, right? So this is something you're going to do automatically. You don't have to worry about that. Okay, so here is the lines over here. We divide this in half. This is for the nipple area, right? So this was true in the 8-head case. But what happens in the 9 heads is that, so everything below here, right, it's always going to pretty much stay the same. The knees are going to be above this line here. You don't have to worry so much about this. But here where that navel is, when you go bigger, everything above this is going to go a nudge up. Okay, so once you have this line for the nipples, this means that the nipples have to be now above this line, right, because we're stretching the figure up. So here the nipples were exactly on this line, and then we drew the chest below this line, and we said that this is where the nipples were. But over here the nipples are going to be above, meaning that this line here in the 9 head now becomes the bottom for the chest. So the nipples are going to be above this guy, right? And so now if you divide this in half, over here you go. So here you can just, if you have figures standing side by side in these formulas, you can take that same height over here and you can just put it up. So meaning that when you divide this in half, it's actually a little bit up. That's what's going to happen automatically. Okay, so here I'm just gonna put this down, the shoulder bones. Let me complete this first before I start talking again. Okay. Okay, so here for the navel, it's going to be a little bit up, a nudge up. Okay, it's just going to be a nudge up. And we'll understand this. This is just basic math as to how this works. Okay, so if this is a nudge up, then yeah, you get the hands over here. Here we're just working with thumbnails, so just keep that in mind here. Right, I'm going to clean this up just like before. Okay, so here not much else is going to change over here. You can just pretty much figure everything else out over here for the legs, right? Because okay, so I'm almost done with this. Okay, so as to why I guess this system works is because you really don't have to worry so much about, you know, are you getting it right, because you are going to get it right if you use this very simple system. Now this is not a system that I'm saying you have to use. This is something that you're going to discover yourself, and you're going to end up using it yourself, right? It's just through experience that you begin to understand these concepts as to how they work. Okay, so now let's just talk about this. Then we'll come back and clean this thumbnail up and make it look a little more better. Okay, so the thing here is that the reason you go a nudge up, right? So it's like in math, like let's say if we have this line in math, let's do a little bit of math here. Let's say if we have this line, right, and we want to divide this in 8 parts. Well, we know that the most simplest way is to obviously divide this in half, divide, right? You get 4, and then you divide, and you get 8 sections here, right? Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, but then the question becomes, okay, well, if you take this same line over here, exactly the same height, how do you turn this line into 9 heads? Right? So you can't divide this in half. That's not possible, right? Because you'll get 8 heads. So the thing is, well, let's just look at a basic understanding as to how this is working over here. Okay, because not only did we make this line a little 1 head bigger, right? Well, about 1 head bigger. We made it a little wider here, but we ended up making this 9 heads. And the way this was done is, like, if you magnify this area over here, let's magnify this over here, right? So let's say this is that one section here for the 8 heads, right? And basically all you do is you take this section, right? So this is just basic research that you can do yourself. So if you divide this in 8 heads, 8 parts here, right, you'll see that you get these small sections that end up being 8 parts, right? So meaning that if you want to turn this into 9 heads, right, and if you take that, so now if you put 9 different circles in here, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 9, let's say this was the 9 heads. This little section over here, this little width, if you add this width, let's say if you minus this width, right, from this 8 heads, so if I divide this, if I have the 8 head here, if I minus this little tiny width and add it in here, that means the next line is going to now have 2 of these guys over here. So meaning that if you keep dividing up, all these will add up and finally it will become 9 heads at the bottom. Okay, so this is why when you use that same basic system of putting the 9 heads down, right, so this is like your key figure here, and you can add the head over here and you just divide in half and put this down here. So this really doesn't change here on the bottom, right? It's stuff here that changes, meaning that you just have to push this up a nudge up, right, because you're minusing. So if you put this a nudge up, everything else is just going to fall into place, right? And this is the thumbnail. So when you blow this up, you can then fix this up and really get it accurate if you want to, you know, literally take the pencil and make sure that you have 9 heads, and it's going to turn out that you will have 9 heads. So one of the things that you want to keep an eye out for is, remember, in the understandings that we went through in those ratios, right, we know that the chest area here, the pec muscles here, they have to fundamentally stay from the height from the bottom of the chin to where the hairline is. So when you make a 9 heads figure, it's going to be the same thing, meaning that your chest is not going to become bigger over here, right? It can't, because it has to stay to the same fundamental concept of how the human being is in real life. So meaning that it has to stay up on this hairline over here, so it's going to be that same concept over here, and everything else is just going to stay into place. So the reason I'm showing you this is because, I mean, what would happen if we, so this is like our 9 head and 10 heads. What would happen if we did a 10 heads figure, right? So let's do this. Let's put a flow line over here and do the same thing. So all we have to do is divide this in half, right? And everything else over here, we know that it's going to work itself out to the bottom of the figure, right? Because you're going to get that division in half. You're going to get your knee joints over here. But over here, now when you divide this in half, that you know that you're going to have to go a little bit up here, right? So you can approximate this. So meaning that if this is the line over here, right? If you go up, this means that the chest line is not going to go a little bit up, then you're going to get your nipples, right? So everything is moving up below this line here. It moves up when you go bigger. Okay, so having done that, let's just put this guy together. So meaning that when you start going up, and then of course this means that if the chest area here has to stay within this ratio over here, meaning that it has to fit in here, your neck is automatically going to become longer, right? It's not going to go up. So these are like things here, like for the collarbone over here, that you have the freedom to move them around. Okay, so here I'm just going to okay, so here's the division, and here's where that line for the nipple is, so I know that the for the navel is, so the navel is going to go up, and then you're going to just get into those same ideas here. Right, so not much really happens over here. You can play around with this, right? Because and here you go again. Just put these thumbnails down pretty quickly. Right, so he's automatically becoming wider, right? So this is something you're going to do. It's going to be all automatic. Okay, so we've got these legs down, and over here we're back to that same understanding of putting our ideas down again, and then you put your arms down, and here's that line where you have to cut off, and here's that navel, right? So you get your bicep over here, your deltoid, forearm, and you're going to get your hands over here. Then you have a 10 heads figure over here. So I'll clean this up and then we'll see what this stuff looks like. But here we solved a pretty fundamental problem here in understanding proportions, how to get them down onto paper much more faster, right? So, and it's just using that same system. So in the next lesson, we're going to have to look at, okay, so what happens when we go backwards, right? So we're going up, we're making the figure bigger, 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 and we know that everything here doesn't really change down on the bottom, but stuff over here changes up, and we can keep an eye out for the ratio over here, meaning that we get a longer neck. Okay, and here I'm just cleaning the thumbnails up a little bit. I'm not going to put so much detail in here. Just getting the fundamental concepts down. So even after cleaning this up, right? So here you can see that the proportions work themselves out correctly. Okay, so I'll see you in the next lesson. Thanks.